On this episode of Sports Opinions Podcast, I have on another one of my former coaches. This one was one of my track and field coaches from Manchester Township High School, Coach Dave Hyatt. And we have a really fun, great show. We talk about the Brooklyn Nets, which we are both fans of, both been diehard fans our whole life. We talk about a topic I've never talked about before on the show, fantasy football. And lastly, we talk about our frustration with the Yankees and their lack of signing DJ and other things. So, without any further ado, enjoy the show. What's up, sports fans, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Sports Opinions Podcast. I am your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. And with me today is someone that I think if people have listened, watched this, they know that I like to bring people on that have had an influence on my life, that have been positive to me and have made me who I am. And whether you like me or hate me, you can kind of blame these people. This guy, one of the biggest influences I've had, I think people have all known, is coaches. Coaches have been a huge influence of mine. And he happened to coach me in a sport that I took to the next level in college. He is Dave Hyatt. He's one of my former high school track coaches at Manchester Township High School. Coach, what's going on?
Not much, Alex. Just glad to be here.
Absolutely. As you could see, I'm rocking my Brooklyn stuff tonight. If I glance down constantly for those watching, it's because the Nets are playing right now. They're doing well. So it's on my phone. So that's going to be super unprofessional if you're watching this on YouTube, but you're watching a podcast. So pretty much deal with
All good, man.
it. So we're going
I
to have
got it
a
on too. I'm looking at you, and then I'm looking up at the TV. So
you can kind of see the reflection in your glasses when you look up. So if anyone's curious how the game's going, they can
there you go.
watch it in the glasses there. But we're gonna, obviously we're both Nets fans. We're gonna talk some Nets. We have some great topics coming up. So let's jump right into it. We're gonna talk the Nets, Brooklyn Nets, formerly New Jersey Nets, as me and Coach Hyatt both started to enjoy them as the New Jersey Nets. Initially, when we did our itinerary, we're recording on Tuesday. We tried to do this last Wednesday, and it was just a puddle of debauchery with the holiday season, me not feeling well, things like that. No, I don't have COVID for anyone scared. It was just normal not feeling well. People are allowed to normally not feel well still. It's a thing. But last week, we were definitely more bullish, and I think we're still extremely bullish because it's early in the season. But the Nets are now sitting at 3-4. They're playing well tonight without Kevin Durant, who is out for 4 games on a COVID suspicion. And right now, Kyrie Irving's taking over, playing well, but the Nets currently sit at 3-4. And after the first two really strong games of the season, I don't think any Nets fan thought that we would have trouble keeping up scoring, which has been a big problem, and playing defense with some of the guys that last year played very good defense for this team. They've lost Spencer Dinwiddie, which is definitely going to hurt them in terms of leadership, scoring, and just overall a level of play. But there's still a lot of talent here. So, Coach, all that being said, what are your expectations for this team for this season?
Well, I definitely agree. After the Golden State game and the Celtics game, they were just blowouts. And the Nets look great. KD looked great. Kyrie, I think I underestimated the importance of Spencer Dinwiddie on this team. It's kind of a jack of all trades. I thought of him more as maybe a depth piece in case, Kyrie needs a rest game or, someone who could take over at the point. But looking back at those first two games, he did so many little things, like rebound here and an assist here, making a shot. So I definitely underestimated his importance. And the other guy who's really kind of concerning me now is Karis LeVert. I really thought last year in the bubble, he took a huge step. He was averaging like 26 points a game. He plays very out of control, and I feel like he tries to do too many things and doesn't let the game come to him. And some of the other guys with their depth, like I was expecting more out of Shamet, more out of Prince. Like it looks like they're actually playing better tonight, but I'm glad to see Brown actually get a chance to start because I thought he was a great pickup on the defensive end from the Pistons. I mean, obviously, I still have very high expectations for this team. When you have two top 10 players, both seem to be healthy. I did think that it would take time to start the season. I was kind of surprised at how easily that it looked early. So I still have high expectations, and I got to get this out there for all my Knicks fans. I can't believe that the year that the Nets are supposed to be good, it's the Knicks who are actually taking back all the headlines. 4-3. I got to give them credit though. Got to give Tibbs credit for those guys playing hard. Obviously, I think Brooklyn has the superior team, but I don't know. But I think they're definitely vying for the Eastern Conference title. It's been a weird NBA season. A lot of teams have been getting blown out. I mean, we saw the Knicks beat the Bucks by like 25 points. So a lot of teams, the Raptors are like 1-5, looking horrible. But as far as the Nets go, I'm still very, very, very confident. I think they still have to learn how to play together, and I think we're going to find out more about Steve Nash as a coach. It was a great, sexy pick as a hire. Former MVP, players like him, but he's never coached. And then you bring in Mike D'Antoni, and they're like, all right, great guy, but not necessarily known for his defensive prowess as a coach. Yeah. So the defense has definitely been bothering me, but I definitely, I'm all in on this team. I just think that they have too many weapons. Shamit's proven, Prince is proven, LeVert, obviously Kyrie, KD, Jared Allen playing a big game again tonight. He's got to play more and start over DeAndre Jordan. I just don't see how they can keep doing this. I guess Jordan's really good friends with KD and Kyrie, but at some point, you just got to go with who's ever playing the best ball. And I don't know. I'm still high. I still think Eastern Conference, but you're right. Last Wednesday, when we did this, you and I were just Facebook messaging back and forth, like, oh, look at this, man, we're up 30.
Yeah.
So, but I still have uber confidence in this team, and I think it's going to take time. KD missed 500 days, Kyrie's hurt, but I definitely, those shots that KD missed at the end of Charlotte and at the end of the last game, they're going to fall. That's his shot. So, but definitely losing Spence has definitely been a kind of a punch to the gut, because I think he was more of the heart and soul of this team than people might have realized.
Without a doubt. I want to touch on a few things you said, because I think you hit a lot of really good points, and I want to kind of give my take and kind of expand on a little bit. First off, with the Knicks, go Julius Randle. He's on my fantasy team. On a week where I'm playing Luka Doncic and he gets 82 fantasy points, Randle got me 72. So go Knicks right now, because I have Burks, I have Randle, and I have Quickly. I just picked them up.
Knicks, I had a rough fantasy draft for basketball this year. I had Giannis, but then I just
my team I thought was bad, and they've been surprisingly really consistent and good. Yeah. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. But
Giannis, Kyrie, and that's about it.
Some of the other things that you said, obviously Caris LeVert concerns me too. Me and my brother talked for a really long time yesterday. For those of you that enjoy the Opinions Podcast Network, my brother David Cuesta Dos, you see Yapti right up there. We're talking about the Nets. He's obviously a gigantic Nets fan. I raised him to love pain, being a Nets Jets fan. So Nets obviously are good, Jets are awful. But we talked yesterday, and we specifically talked about Caris LeVert because he's one of my favorite players in the league. I think he's been endeared to a lot of Nets fans, especially coming back from his injury in Michigan, one of Sean Mark's first big picks, and he ends up being a legitimate guy, which could have went both ways with his injury history. We were talking about the fact that right now, Caris LeVert is not being Caris LeVert. He's taking far too many threes, and my brother said he needs to start getting to the hole. And I think one of the things with Caris LeVert is, yes, it's getting to the hole and getting in the paint, but he's a guy that gets more jump started when he's assisting other players, when he's getting a steal, when he's playing good defense. Those are the things, speaking of the devil, I think he just scored, but those are the things that
he's definitely looking. It almost feels like, just watching this game quickly, like obviously we're 1,000 times better with Kevin Durant, but like guys feel more free and like they're not worried like I have to give KD the ball, and I don't think that's not how KD is as a player, but I think that a lot of the young guys are kind of in awe of, wow, I'm playing with Kevin Durant.
And I was going to mention, that's a perfect observation. I was going to definitely say that Jeff Green had some comments after, I think it was 2 games ago. It might've been the Hawks game where they lost.
The
And he said flat out, this team right now, we're not playing basketball. We're just trying to outscore everybody. Even when we're struggling shooting, if you're playing defense, you're going to be in the game. And we're not doing that. We're just trying to go out and outscore everyone. And that's not the game of basketball. And we're seeing fruits of that today. They're definitely playing better basketball. Even though Kyrie's gone crazy, the first quarter, he scored a ton. They're just in a better place. And I think some of that does have to do with trying to figure out where everybody else fits with Katie and Kyrie. And I'd say this, some guys probably aren't used to getting the open looks that they're getting. Most guys are good when they're contested. And right now, with Katie and Kyrie on the floor, I don't think Landry Shamet has been as wide open as he's been a few times in his career. And sometimes guys, when they're too wide open, miss. We see that all the time. So I just think that I agree with you on all this stuff, that I really think that this team's going to come together. They have a lot of good players. The fact that, like you said, tonight was the first time we've seen Brown, period. We have not seen Tyler Johnson yet. There's a slew of guys that we just haven't seen play yet. And it's going to be interesting going down the rest of the season. Right now, they're sitting at 3-4. I'm expecting 40 plus wins in a 72 game season. I think that's definitely feasible for this team. You're right. The Knicks are getting the headlines right now. You got to remember, though, this team is adjusting to bringing in a brand new superstar. Julius Randle is now in his second year as the star of that team, with RJ coming on and being better. This core with Knox and Alfred Payton, this core came back this year. And they're now used to playing with each other on the Knicks. And I've said the whole offseason, not on this program, because unfortunately this podcast has been more inconsistent with the new year and a lot of things going on. But the Knicks are going to score a lot of points this year. There are a lot of professional scorers on that team. If Randall can be the guy that he is being right now, where he's a budding superstar, that's a playoff team.
Yeah.
100% they could score with anybody. We'll see where they go. But with the Nets, I'm with you. I'm expecting competing for the Eastern Conference title. Whether they get there or not, with the Bucks probably definitely having more experience being there again, we'll find out. But we'll see. And there's a lot of other teams in the East that are going to have a say about it.
Yeah.
Jump into a different realm with you, because we're talking about the present with the Nets with Katie, Kyrie. But there's going to be a time where Katie and Kyrie aren't on the Nets anymore. Mm-hmm. Whether that's in 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. If Katie plays out his 2 years and says, deuces, I'm out. Thanks, guys. I maybe got you a championship. If not, it was a fun try. And Kyrie, whenever he plans to hate wherever he is and leave, because Kyrie does that, do you think that they're going to have enough sustainable success within these next few years that other young superstars are going to look at Brooklyn as a viable place to go and be a superstar, to go and carry a franchise? Or is this kind of Brooklyn's chance, and then it's going to go back to being your middling team, your 7th, 6th to 8 seed, and maybe kick and scratch? What do you see after this?
Well, this is kind of a debate that I have with my ex-brother-in-law all the time. He's a diehard Knicks fan, and he just always tells me that, we're second class, we're the Jets. I said, yeah, okay, fine. We're the Mets, to the Yankees, the Nets. And that's probably always going to be that way. But then I always say, what has been, this powerhouse Knicks, what players has that brought to your team in free agency? None. So to answer your question, I don't know. I am skeptical. Like maybe it'll take someone else like Kyrie, who's from the area, but guys who are going to be in the NBA then, there was no Jason Kidd. They watched up, they grew up watching, Darren Williams or, like that was, that just never worked out well at all, which I still get angry about. But I don't know, you would hope that you win enough games, because I think Brooklyn does have some cachet. It is in New York, it had like when they first went there, it had like the whole thing with Jay-Z and, the black and white uniforms, which everyone thought was cool. I do trust in Sean Marks. Yeah. I think he's done a great job. I think he's hit on a lot of his draft picks, maybe not so much the last couple of years, but when you talk about Jared Allen taking in 20s, in the 20s, Karis LeVert in the 20s. I'm high on Claxton. I know he hasn't played much, but, you hear a lot of reports about him and Reggie Perry, being players, who can play. But to answer your question, I don't know. I hope so. You hope that you build up enough credibility as an organization where players enjoy playing here. I know the HSS Center is one of the top training facilities in all the NBA.
Yeah.
We have great surgeons, great doctors. So, it's I don't know. I'm nervous, and I'm hoping that in 5 years, I can say, to my ex brother-in-law, I told you, we might not ever catch the Knicks in popularity, but I think we can certainly work our way into catching them in terms of just being a better organization, being a better basketball team. So I think we're going to need to hit another free agent, maybe while Katie and Kyrie are here, someone a little younger, up and coming, to help kind of keep that trend going.
Yeah.
I feel if we lost both of them in 2 years, I don't know.
And so how much of this, Sean Marks has already cemented himself as a solid GM, if not one of the top GMs in the league. He's definitely a guy that I look at it whenever he makes a trade or makes a deal. He kind of has the Danny Ainge factor about him. He doesn't lose. You never feel like you lost the back end of a Sean Marks trade. Sean Marks always wins. He's a guy that no one's going to want to do business with because he doesn't lose ever. So he has a reputation of being a good GM, and that's definitely attractive. Like you said, the facilities are great. I think the Nets culture right now is very good. I think, you don't take on guys like Kyrie and Kevin Durant, who are both pretty sensitive when it comes to media attacks and very vocal. You don't take on those two guys if you don't believe that your actual culture is a very good one, that they're not going to derail that. With that being said, how much predicates on whether or not Steve Nash is a good head coach? If he flounders in these next 2 years, and if he flounders, the Nets don't get a championship because bad decisions on his end will cost this team. But if he ends up being kind of like an Eric Spoelstra, a guy that was doubted coming in because he was young and very inexperienced, he rose his way, no one knew, he was LeBron's puppet, yada, yada. And he's ended up being a great coach. He's been a top coach every single year, brought that Heat team what no one expected to a finals last year in the bubble. How much of this is based on whether or not Steve Nash is a good head coach?
I think it's huge. I mean, I think he's always going to be well liked by his players, but can he light that fire by those guys? Will they listen to him when things are going bad? Or will they, I definitely got concerned in the offseason when Kyrie Irving was talking about how we don't have a head coach. We're all like, no, you need that one person. I mean, just look at the Knicks, the difference that Thibodeau has already made. He's a hard-nosed guy who's going to make them play defense, or you're not playing.
They're professional athletes and Knicks that run in practice when they make mistakes. How many professional athletes run in practice when they make mistakes anymore, especially basketball? And Tibbs is having the Knicks running in practice when they make mistakes.
Yeah,
that's huge to me.
I don't think Nash is taking KD or Kyrie out of a game if they don't get back on defense, So, but I also feel like KD and Kyrie have earned that right in a sense because they are such good players. I think it's big Nash, but I also think it's big Kyrie. I think KD's chill, he's calm, he's gonna buy in. Kyrie can get, let's be honest, he's a weird dude.
It's interesting.
I don't think he's a bad guy. He does tons of charity and stuff, but he's a thinker, he's not your typical jock in a sense.
I enjoy how KD kind of makes fun of him in public. And I think that kind of goes into keeping Kyrie grounded, where when he talked about the Sage, when he was like, man, I think he sages his room before he plays 2K. And even when he was coming in the injury last year and they were talking about Kyrie, and KD was just like, he's a head case. You got to just let Kyrie be Kyrie. You don't try and force him to do anything. And if you just let him be in his own headspace, he's cool. He's just a weird dude. KD's not afraid to say those things, which nobody else really says. And Kyrie doesn't seem to take offense to anything KD says, which is a different situation when he was with LeBron, where him and LeBron have this little ticky-tacky stupid thing going on where he doesn't want to be called LeBron's little brother. And LeBron gets offended when he says that he's not. It's stupid things with LeBron and him, but it seems like KD and him have just a different relationship, and DeAndre as well, with that trifecta of being good friends, where I think when things start to get too tough, KD's going to be the guy that says something publicly that only Kyrie will understand, as we'll think it's a cut at Kyrie. And Kyrie will understand it's just KD's way of getting him back into reality. We saw it the other day on the floor where it looked like him and KD had a heated debate. And then Kyrie got going and I think rattled off 16 points in a quarter. And it was just awesome to see, where in essence, I think what Kyrie was saying is semi-true, where even though Steve Nash is his head coach, his headspace is KD getting him back, is DeAndre Jordan getting him back. Seems like Jeff Green's kind of entering in that fray of veteran presence, getting them back into place. So Kyrie is a different case. I think bringing on KD is smart, even though he was injured, and DeAndre was a
Yeah.
necessary guy to get in. So,
Well, I
um,
mean, I think I some people like, well, Katie was a risk. If you're the Brooklyn Nets or the New Jersey Nets and you have a chance to get Kevin Durant and you don't care that he's hurt. You're like, it's like you're never gonna like players like that have never come to this organization,
no,
and so it was a no brainer. It's still a no brainer. I mean, you look at the money that these guys get now, and he's making what, like 140? I mean, now there's guys like Rudy Gobert's getting $240 million.
which I will argue completely earned. Rudy Gobert is a
Right.
monster and earned every dollar of
Agreed.
that.
Agreed. But it's like, so like, but should he be making $100 million more than KD? No, but it's just like, but I like how the NBA's changed those rules. It gives the teams that have those players a greater chance. You get the extra year.
Yeah.
You can sign longer. So, I mean, listen, the Steve Nash is, we don't know. Kyrie, we're hoping, but I have great faith in this team. I think they're going to, it's easy to say now they're up 110-82, on Utah, who's a very good team.
Playoff team. Yep.
I feel like they played down to a team so far to start the season. The big games, national TV, crushed everybody, but the games like should not have lost Wizards. That game.
Before we switch gears, I'm putting you on the spot right now. The Nets, the champions this year, period. Yes or no?
Eastern Conference or NBA?
NBA overall.
No.
Okay. So we're going to jump into some fun stuff, something I've actually never talked about on the program, which is cool that we're bringing in something different, but we're going to talk about fantasy sports, specifically fantasy football. Me and you both mentioned fantasy basketball, but that's not the topic here. You told me you're a Giants fan, but with a caveat that you really don't follow them as much because fantasy football has kind of taken everything over. And you now basically peruse around games. I assume you own Red Zone because every fantasy person has Red Zone so they can watch their guys and see if who's scoring. So in essence, is that one of the main ways that it's changed viewing football for you? Do you not sit down and watch a full game unless it's like a night game anymore? Are you just watching Red Zone all Sunday?
Yeah, and I'm sure they're gonna take away my Giants card because like growing up, 86 Giants, and like I can pretty much name the whole team. I still wear my Mark Boothville jersey out, whenever I go out. But yeah, and I think a lot of it too has to do with the fact, that the Giants haven't been fun to watch.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I mean, like you get in 2, 3, 4 fantasy leagues, and like it just becomes fun, like we have league chats with all our friends and everyone's talking junk all day. Like, look at this player, this guy thinks, talking trades, like, you almost feel like you're the actual GM when these players actually play for you. I mean, it's ridiculous to even say that, and it sounds nerdy or whatnot, but but like that's how you feel. You feel a part of these guys. Like you get hurt when like they don't want to play, or it's slow. But yeah, I think it's changed the NFL in general. I mean, I don't know if we'd even have the red zone if we didn't have fantasy football. Like people would just watch their own local teams on their own channels, just like we did growing up. I remember growing up, I could watch, because in Pine Beach, where I grew up, we had Fox and New York, so I could watch the Giants, the Eagles, or the Jets.
Yep.
But and it was fine. Like nobody cared. I was a Giants fan. But now, like I think fantasy sports is, especially football, way more than the other sports. I mean, I play the other sports, but fantasy football is by far the biggest of the fantasy sports.
So how in depth do you go with your fantasy leagues? I know they have salary cap leagues. They have, keeper league has become a big one. I've always wanted to do one of the continuing progressive leagues with the salary cap where you keep the team every year. You can drop guys. You can draft when the draft comes. You can hold your own draft of new players to bring them out. Like that's a super, like you said, you are the GM in that situation. You have a cap. You can't go over. You have to, once guys' contracts are up for you, you need to either re-sign them, let them go. Like it gets super friggin' nerdy. But so how in depth are you? Are you just more of the keeper league every year, normal type of thing?
Like I've been in these leagues for 15 years,
Yeah, yeah.
so we're just pretty much old school, like when I first started, you didn't get combined yards for rushing and receiving. There was no PPR, it
Mhm.
was just you had a running back, like a guy like Derrick Henry would have gone number one.
Yeah.
But now PPR, he's not,
Devontae Adams is a freak,
or
and he was a mistake pick for me, and I'm happy I had him this year.
but like we're more just kind of like ad drops, trades, pick a new team every year. I mean, I used to be in a keeper league, and it was fun, but there's so many different types of keeper leagues. Like, I'm not a fan of a keeper league where you can keep the same player for 15 years.
Yeah.
Like, that gets agitating. Like, like someone's had Julio Jones probably for like 13 years, and it's finally maybe now not paying off. Like the keeper league that I was in, wherever you drafted them, they lost 3 rounds the following year. So if you got them in round 9, then they were worth round 6. You lose your 6th-round pick. So they would drop 3. So after every couple of years, those players were back in the field, unless you hit a gold mine like I did when I got Brian Westbrook off of waivers when he was, and then he just I had him for like 7 years.
Yeah,
But
that was
like,
worth it.
but there are a lot of, the other thing that I think is taking fantasy even up to a whole other level is your DraftKings and your FanDuels, and because
I can't do that in New York. I
that's
still can't do it in New York.
that's rough.
I'm begging Governor Cuomo. I know you have COVID going on. I know in the assembly, I know you guys have things going on, but for the love of God, please let us gamble here. Please let us do
Yeah.
sports betting. Figure out a way to take all the money from it. I don't care how you tax it. Just let me sports bet, please.
I mean, like the thing with that is, if say you're in your season long league, right?
Yeah.
Your top three picks, you're out with injury.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really care as much anymore. You're down, but then there's DraftKings where I can pick a new team every single week.
Yep.
And I have a chance. Like, I'm in a DraftKings league against the same 10 guys.
Yep.
It's $10 every week, but top 2 guys get, paid out. But it's like, I don't care if the guy in my other league is hurt, because I won't draft him in DraftKings, and that kind of has that whole salary based thing too. You get $50,000 and you got to pick and choose,
And
So-
you're in a league with $10 a person, but you could choose to go at random strangers and choose how much money you want to spend, which is cool. Like, I did it for a little when I was still living in Jersey when it was new, like fairly new. It was only like 5-6 years old. There were no scandal with it yet. And I would do $5 games here and there, and I'd win 10. I would do, not often, because it's actually really difficult to win in DraftKings, and they have professionals there that are paid to just whoop your ass. But it's fun. It is lots of fun to sit there and do that salary cap thing and pick the elite guy. And the fun thing about that is, even though you're competing against a bunch of people, 10,000 people can have the same exact lineup. It's not like when one guy gets picked, the other ones leave. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a fan of it.
I usually just to do like the $5 league here, against like 400,000 people,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll win $6 or $7, but there's always that thing, like, you never know.
Oh,
Like, I could spend 5 and
it always made me so sad when I did those leagues. And in the beginning of the day, it's like you're in the top 10,000, and then as the day goes on, it's like 25, 100. You're last. It's like,
I remember at one point I was in second place after
oh my God.
It was after the 1:00 games, after Thursday and 1:00. I'm second place. It's like you can win $400,000. I'm like,
Yeah, you were in line to make real money.
It was like $100,000, and then I ended up winning $43. So it's like
that's close. It's comparable, I guess.
I only spent 5, so I was like I put $25 in, and then just kind of see, I'll be up to 100. I'll be back down to 5. Just kind of let it roll.
Yeah,
but I think that's changed football more than any other sport in terms of its popularity. I mean, football is by far number one because fantasy sports. I mean, you have shows on it, like sometimes rather than NFL game day, I'll watch the fantasy football show with Matthew Berry on ESPN too.
Yep.
So it's definitely changed football, at least for me. I mean, I'll always root for Giants, I'm not as mad about what happened on Sunday as some other people are. Like,
We're gonna get to that. Savior, I'll ask you about that later because I have some opinions about that too. But that leads into what I was gonna ask you next. As a Giants fan, like you said, you'll always bleed blue. You definitely had the fun of watching them win the last two championships within the last 2 decades, which is great. I'm a Jets fan. I wasn't alive for my championship, and I'm probably not going to be alive the next time they win one. But obviously, like you said, they haven't been fun to watch. You probably were turned off early this year, but as they got into playoff contention, did your ears perk up a little? Were you paying attention a little more at the end of this year?
yeah, I mean, definitely, like I think Joe Judge was a great hire. Like I think he gets everything out of his guys. Like I remember just watching him in training camp, like just like the way that the guys responded, that wouldn't have happened. We haven't really had a very good coach since Coughlin left. We had the McAdoo's, the Shermers, like guys who you're like, what are you doing? But like when they first got him, like who's this special teams coach on the Patriots? Because
I was skeptical.
The Belichick tree is not exactly. I mean, you got Flores this year, but it hasn't exactly done well as head coaches. But yeah, I mean, you definitely got excited. And you get excited, and then you see things that bother you. Like Evan Engram could be one of the best tight ends in the NFL, but he can't hold on to the ball.
Either dropsies or fumbling when he does make a catch. Like it's one or the other. You can never expect Evan Engram to make the big play unless he catches it in the end zone.
Fantasy
if he drops it after that, it's a touchdown. But you expect him to screw it up if he's in a big spot.
Yeah. I mean, I feel they need a big wide receiver. Like I would love them to go out and trade for like a healthy, like a Kenny Galladay, someone who's just a number one. But the guy that I'd like to see them get in free agency is Davis on the Titans.
Yeah, Corey Davis.
I mean, he's really come on. But
yeah,
Daniel Jones, to me, he's got talent. He can escape. He can throw the ball, but just too many turnovers. I mean, he always when he gets hit, you're just afraid that he's going to fumble. But I think him going down really cost them. I was shocked that they beat Seattle with a Colt.
I love me some Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy is just a gamer.
Listen, he's a solid backup. He's a solid, the University of Texas. But I definitely think they're on the up and up, and so I am probably gonna get a little more excited when the next September rolls around.
So I was really skeptical about Daniel Jones because the last Duke quarterback to be behind the Giants, I think, was Dave Brown, and he was absolutely atrocious. And he wasted the best years of Chris Callaway. And I'm not a Giants fan, but God, Chris Callaway was an all-time talent, and he had Dave Brown throwing to him for like 2-3 years in his prime. It was terrible. So you mentioned the Eagles, what happened this past Sunday. Where are you on that? Are you like some of the former Giants players, like a lot of Giants fans, pissed at the Eagles for not getting you guys in the playoffs?
I mean, I'm not like Joe Judge pissed, he was not happy, like kind of calling him out. I think that I would have understood more if they went from Wentz to Jalen Hurts, if that was a thing, like we want to get Hurts some playing time because, I mean, Hurts played, 3 or 4 games? Looks good, but, like, what are you evaluating this guy who's been on your team for 4 years? Like, you should know who he is. But I also think that some of the Giants got to, take a little step back and say, we only won 6 games.
Yeah. So,
like, you're fighting for a playoff spot with 6 wins, so it's, I don't know. I don't think it's as big of a deal, because then you also hear like Chris Collinsworth saying that like he told that Peterson told them that they were going to play Sudfeld some. So, I mean, it looked bad. It definitely hurt the Giants because I think if Hurts stays in there, but I also don't know why they went for the touchdown and they didn't kick the field goal when they were down 3. And so I don't know. I mean, I hate the Eagles. So it was hard rooting for them anyway, but I'm not as torn up about it as a lot of other Giants fans are. Like, I feel like I've seen more egregious things in the late weeks of the NFL in the past. I guess the only difference was most of those, I guess, are announced prior to the game. Like the Steelers, they pretty much gave the Browns, and they still almost won, but like you knew Ben wasn't playing, and like so. I feel like since it wasn't announced earlier, it definitely made more news than teams who say, like we're not playing Patrick Mahomes, we're not playing all these guys. So that I definitely think made it look worse. But you got to win more than 6 games if you really think that you want to actually make the actual playoffs. So
From the outside looking in, I thought it was hilarious. To the Giants players, to the Giants fans, to the former Giants players, expect your team to be better at their jobs. Like you said, they won 6 games. Don't cry. If it was a situation where you're at the wild card and the Eagles are, they could beat the Skins and get you guys in. It's 9-7, 8-8. Like those are at least decent seasons. You won 6 games. You have nothing to complain about at all because I find it kind of funny. It's a division rival giving you the meh. And Doug Peterson wanted to be a part of the greatest comeback story in the history of sports with Alex Smith. Because my hot take is whoever won the NFC East is going to win the championship, and I'm sticking to it. It's going to be, I'm gonna say it, Washington Redskins winning the championship. I don't care what they're called right now. Until they get a name, that's what I'm going to call them. Until they get a name.
Ridiculous thing.
But because that's my take. Once they get a name, I'll gladly call them the name. I refuse to call them the Washington football team. Washington Redskins until they get a name.
WFT just sounds like an acronym for some sort of curse word. I'm like, what are they saying? Washington football team. Okay.
Yeah, no. So I just think, and that's my hot take, whoever won the NFC East was going to win the championship just because it would just be a super NFC East thing for it to happen this year. But I'm more of be better at your jobs in MetLife be in this situation.
I mean, yeah. Do you wish that Hurts played? But who knows if they would have won anyway.
Hurts didn't play well. Hurts was playing pretty bad. He was running the ball okay. He has 2 touchdowns in short yardage situations. It wasn't, Washington was doing a good job keeping him contained. And don't take anything away from that Washington defense. That's a stellar defense. And with Alex Smith, that is a completely different team. With Alex Smith, that's not the team that's there. That with Alex Smith's an 8-8, 9-7 quarterback for that team that year. You got to remember, Dwayne Haskins played a handful of games, and there's a ton of losses on Dwayne Haskins' ledger that year. So,
I just think that I don't like how Chase Young I guess I kind of like that today how we called out Brady, but
I absolutely love that.
I mean, I also like Bruce Arians' response though. Hey, all right, be careful what you wish for. But listen.
Chase Young has a lot of ground to stand on though, because the one way you beat Brady is you get him off his spot. And if anybody can get him off his spot this year, Chase Young's the guy because he's been a monster. And if he played a full 16 the way he's played the last 6, he's the runaway defensive player of the year. So
that's how the Giants beat Brady,
Yeah.
Strahan, OC Umanura,
that was the Jets' plan in the heyday. In the Jets' heyday, that was the only plan. The Jets were geared just to beat the Patriots only, which is why they struggled against a lot of other teams during the Rex Ryan era, because their only goal was to beat the Patriots twice a year. That was it. So it's interesting. I love fantasy sports. I think it's great. We're gonna hopefully we get sports betting in New York. That's how I'm gonna end this segment. Lastly, we're going to talk about probably the most frustrating team in our fandom, because me and you both like the Yankees, and they shouldn't be this damn frustrating. They should not be. Why the hell have they not signed DJ LeMahieu and brought him back? Can we just, we got to figure out a way to get Walt Disney out of cryo freezing, because I know Steinbrenner's sitting next to him. Get George out of cryo freeze so we can just pay this man.
Yeah, Hal's definitely not George.
He'd rather be an AC spending all the Steinbrenner money because we know the man has a gambling problem. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think Hal's more like a Wilpon than a Steinbrenner. But the whole thing with DJ, man, I don't know. Like he's proven he's just an absolute stud. I think I don't know. Like he wants to come back. You want to sign him. I mean, how many times have the Yankees overpaid guys in terms of years? Give him a 5th year. And just
sign Giancarlo Stanton. Are you kidding me?
Right. I know, like that trade was, and I'm like, dude's got 10 years left for like $350 million, but you trade for him. I guess maybe they're thinking, well, we're gonna have to pay Judge, but at this point, I would take DJ over Judge. I mean, he plays. I mean, I love Judge, but he's always hurt. Stan's always hurt, and we need pitching. Like,
Yeah.
bite the bullet. And I know Trevor Bauer's a weird dude, man, but like, dude can
I love
pitch.
Trevor Bauer.
He's great. And he gets
I love the
angry.
edge that he plays with.
He's himself. He doesn't care on Twitter. He'll call anybody out. Like any balls. Like I would love to have him. And this year kind of worries me with our pitching staff. You got Cole. You don't know what you have in Severino. Guy's
He
nasty.
might not be coming back till middle of the year.
I mean, he's nasty, but like he doesn't pitch.
Yeah.
Domingo Herman. I don't know about him. I like Jordan Montgomery. You don't have Tanaka. I mean, I could see him coming back.
Apparently, the Yankees aren't pursuing him right now, so he might just go to Japan.
I would bring back Paxton on a 1-year deal, cheap.
I don't want Paxton back.
He's healthy. I don't like him either, but I mean, he's at least a lefty who can strike guys out.
Yeah.
Like, and our bullpen, I thought, was very suspect last year.
I think our bullpen was suspect because Aaron Boone just went to him way too often, and I've had a vendetta against starting pitching. I don't believe that their starting pitcher isn't a position anymore in the MLB. If you can't go 6 innings, you're not a starting pitcher. So we have very few starting pitchers in the MLB. The opener has been a thing for a long time now. It's not just 2 innings. If you're pulling guys after 5, if you're listening to stupid analytics and not letting them see a lineup a third time, you're not a starter. Period. I don't care about 100 pitches. Get to the 6th, get at least into the 6th. You don't have to finish it, but get there, then you're a starter. That's my take. But there's some other names that I saw the Yankees are pursuing. Apparently, the Yankees and Sox are both looking at Yasiel Puig, who hasn't been in the league since 2018. The guy could be a spark, but he's not consistent. You mentioned Trevor Bauer. I like Trevor Bauer. Taijuan Walker is a name that he was on the Jays last year. The Yankees saw a good amount of him. He played really well when he was on the Jays. There was other rumors about maybe bringing in James McCann to replace Sanchez, basically as a starter, even though they tendered Sanchez and he's back. James McCann's a good player. He doesn't give you the superstar power that Real Muto, but obviously Steinbrenner doesn't want to pay anybody right now. So we're realistic.
Sanchez for like $5 million or whatever it was.
And then the last thing I saw is maybe the reason why they're not bringing back DJ is a potential trade for Francisco Lindor, who I don't want Francisco Lindor if it's taking him over DJ. I think DJ is just a better overall player.
He is, but I mean, he's also probably 5 or 6 years older. And I do think Torres is a liability at shortstop some defensively, where I think he'd be less of a liability if he shifted over to second base. And then you got someone like a Lindor. My first choice would be to keep DJ. I think Gleyber Torres, I think last year was just a weird year. Like I think he came back after the break kind of out of shape. He wasn't, like he didn't do much, when they were off, because he definitely looked better in the first spring training. I guess you would.
I think the pressure to be at the level of Aaron Judge right away in terms of superstardom and handling that type of thing with Giancarlo Stanton, he was expected to be the next superstar and be right there. And we saw Sanchez kind of fold underneath it. Torres folded a little. We'll see if he can bounce back. There was also a rumor about the Yankees possibly grabbing Didi again because Didi is going to be back on the market, which, God, bring Didi back. You know what? I'd be okay if they let DJ walk if they bring Didi back, because I just love Didi is that clutch hitter. He's not as good of a hitter, but he's a very clutch hitter. I
mean, there's some rumors, is Nolan Arenado, is he available? I mean, he makes a lot of money, and he's hurt. And I used to think that all those Colorado guys were, but seeing DJ play as well as he's done here kind of has changed that a little bit for me. Because I mean, growing up in the '90s. Anybody who played in Colorado,
Biggio.
Their whole lineup had 70 home runs, like Larry Walker, Andres Galarraga, Dante.
Biggio was Astros.
Yeah, Dante Bichette. Like these guys are all hitting 45 home runs. So, but they definitely, it's not as bad as it was. Like I heard Trevor Story might be available. But like I definitely would love to bring back DJ. If not, I'd be okay with a Lindor move and moving Torres to second. And the other thing I think that, like, for a while I kept saying the Yankees need a first baseman. A first baseman. I mean, Luke Voigt's been he led the league in home runs last year. You know,
Yeah.
he's still just I don't know if he's my first choice, but he's a serviceable guy who's gonna give you good at bats. My biggest thing is pitching.
We need starting pitching.
Chapman,
I think the starting pitching, if the starting pitching's better, the pen will look better again. Even though Canley's not back again,
that
you
one,
have certain guys that are gone that are important to the pen. But I think if you get starting pitching, they'll look better. And right now, I don't think the Yankees need any more power. I think, that's one of my issues with Lindor. Lindor is a very gifted hitter, but he's another guy that is more of a power guy, where I think we need more contact guys. That's the one thing we saw with DJ. The
yeah,
question with DJ is his batting prowess going to translate to the American League and to the Yankees? And one of the things that we saw with DJ, it's okay. Your cat can hang out. Your cat's awesome. But one of the things that we saw with DJ is that's exactly what the Yankees need.
right.
They need a contact guy. We saw with who was the third baseman that filled in? I can't for Andujar. I can't the life of me. The young
Yeah,
kid.
Miguel Andujar. Like I mean,
Who's the one that filled in for him with the injury this year? He was really good.
Gio Urshela.
Gio Urshela, another contact guy.
Yeah, listen, that guy was a revelation.
And he was a revelation. And I actually like Gio for this team better than Miguel Andujar. Well, Andujar's a supreme talent. But just the fit with this team, we do not need another strikeout or home run or strikeout or extra base guy. Where that's the issue to me. And analytics tells you that a guy like DJ LeMahieu does not have as much value as a guy like Giancarlo Stanton, because the home run and the strikeout mean everything. Strikeouts have no value. Home runs have all value, where a guy that just gets on base is good right now, but doesn't seem to be great, which kind of spits in the face of Billy Beane's theory. But it's a weird situation the Yankees are in right now, where I would love to see Joe Panic was a name that I saw. Joe Panic's from the area that I live in right now in Poughkeepsie, New York. He's from East Fishkill, which is 20 minutes away from me. He's a New York boy. I'd love to see Joe Panic. Even though he's a little older, he's an experienced guy that's won a championship and was a cog to winning that championship with the Giants.
Right.
He would be a great guy to bring in my eyes.
Well, to me, like it's that age-old debate. Who was better, Jeter or A-Rod? A-Rod was the power analytic guy. Jeter was, I need a base hit to right field in the bottom of the ninth. I'm going to get that guy in. I mean,
yeah.
A-Rod was probably more talented overall. I mean, this is prior to the enhancements. But he was when he was on Seattle and Texas. But his teams didn't win. His teams did not win until he came here.
Seattle should have won. Seattle, that team was stacked. There's no reason why they didn't win. But one of my issues right now, what we're looking at is gone are the days of the slugger that can get the clutch hit. One of the things that made the 96, 98 Yankees beautiful to me was your best hitters, your Tino Martinez, your Bernie Williams, your Paul O'Neills. Those guys were power guys. But if they needed to shorten up their swing to get a single, they did it timely. They didn't only know how to hit home runs.
Or a walk.
They were also hitters.
With the Paul O'Neill against Armando Benitez, in the World Series, 11 pitch at bat just to get on base. He was overmatched, but he found a way to get done, and then they end up winning that game.
Which brings us on to our next point with Aaron Judge. I see that in Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is a guy that he falls into a funk and free swings, but when he's locked in, he has a lot of that. He's not always going for the home run. I give that to Aaron Judge. He is a very fast individual for a big man, a talented fielder. So he has athleticism. He's not just a big hitter, and he doesn't always look to hit the home run. I think sometimes he hit it trying to hit a line drive and he just puts it over the fence. He doesn't expect it either. But like you said, his injuries are a problem. But right now I'm looking at it, and is he the superstar of this team right now? Is he the guy? He came on, his rookie year was unbelievable. His injuries have plagued him, but even when he's there, I do think umpires are unfair with his strike zone. Some of the calls at the knees inside are absolutely terrible. It's not humanly possible for Aaron Judge to even make contact with some of those. But just overall, just the feeling last year, I didn't feel like Aaron Judge was the superstar when he came up to bat in a big moment.
Right.
I was looking more for DJ. DJ was the superstar of the team last year, where, you bring in a Francisco Lindor. Whenever he gets at the bat, you're having a good feeling about Francisco Lindor.
I don't even think that Judge is the most talented guy. on that team. I'm a big Gleyber Torres fan. I think he's so because he can hit for average, and he has way more power than I thought it was. And I mean, talk about Brian Cashman trading Chapman to get him, and then re-signing Chapman.
I love that. The one thing I do love about this group of Steinbrenners is they're letting Cashman be a real GM, and we're actually seeing that he's a good GM.
Yes.
And that's one of the things. So let's look at this in terms of comparisons. Alonso comes onto the Mets, and he kind of mirrors Judge's rookie year, where he has a lot of home runs and everything. He follows it up last year with a really good year as well. Would you trade Alonso for Judge at this point in terms of players? Take away the injuries that Judge has, just pure players. Would you flip-flop those two?
Oof.
I put you on the spot. That was not in the itinerary, everybody.
I would have to say no.
Is it just because you love Judge?
Or if there's no injuries. If you factor in injuries, yes. If you factor in they're both healthy, who I think is a better player, I think Aaron Judge gives you way more defensively than Pete Alonso does. I mean, he's a Gold Glover. Like I said, he goes back and then he's throwing out guys from the warning track. So I think they're very close offensively. And I do think Judge does have more of an ability to get that hit to go to right field and not just be home run or everything. I mean, they both strike out a ton, but who doesn't now? Like it's like the whole game's like, oh, like this guy hit 3 home runs, but he struck out 7 times. Like
10 at bats. That's a long game.
I know. I feel like the last great guy, the last great power hitter who did it all was Miguel Cabrera in his prime. Like him or Albert Pujols in his prime. Like those guys are still playing, but they're not what they were. But now it's power. There's not that many guys
that does it that doesn't get any credit because he plays over in the Angels and he's there forever is Mike Trout. Trout is that guy.
But he does strike out more than people think.
He does strike out more than people think. I think a lot of that's pressing because his team is so bad.
Yeah.
But Mike Trout is legitimately the talent of this generation. He is,
Jersey boy, man.
Oh yeah. Fun fact, when Mike Trout came out, I was working at the Asbury Park Press and I was covering the Vineland area where he is from in New Jersey. So I was all the papers when he came out as a rookie was lighting it up. That's all they wrote about in the sports section there. So fun fact.
I guess that's your question. I just think Judge is, I'm sure there's a Yankee bias in here by far in this question. If I'm just, being honest, I just feel he's a better player. Again, health taken out, into it. You'd have to pick probably Pete Alonso in it. As a diehard Yankee fan, it's not easy to say, but like, it's funny. Like Mets fans hate the Yankees. I never hated the Mets. It's like,
do I? It's like the only time I hate the Mets is when Mets fans start getting all high and mighty and start trying to talk trash about the Yankees. And it's like, I did hashtag LGM during your World Series. Like, I wanted the redheaded stepsister to get out of the cupboard for 5 minutes, and you put yourself back in when you lost to the World.
Listen, best time that I ever had was 2000. I was at Rutgers in college, Subway Series. The Rutgers was going bananas. Like, isn't it like it was the funnest series. I mean, half of my roommates were Mets fans, half of my roommates were Yankees fans. Like it was an amazing time. It's Aaron Judge.
All right. Speaking of Rutgers, you mentioned them. How awesome is the basketball season so far? They're down 28-22 at halftime to Michigan State, which is terrible. But how awesome is their season so far? Just a little quick thing. We didn't have it on there, but basketball. Ron Harper Jr. is a grown man.
He is. Listen, it's been great. Like since they've been to the Big Ten, that move, obviously it was for financial reasons. It's been a disaster in pretty much every sport. I mean, track and field that they've done.
Yeah, well, listen, getting one of my good friends from Jackson, Monroe Kearns. I don't know if Monroe, and you've heard this, Monroe was a big part of getting Rutgers back on track, running a 150.
But their head coach now is a Tom Driver guy, Bobby Farrell.
Yep.
And he went to East, he was coaching, and then his assistant coach is Matt Jelly, who was the Tom Driver North coach forever. So like just that whole aspect is awesome. But like the basketball season has been it's been amazing. Like I thought they had Iowa the other day. They were up and up, and then they kind of lost it in the end on the free throw line. But listen, they're ranked top 20. I always said if Rutgers can keep the top talent in the state of New Jersey, they will be top 25 in football and basketball every year.
In every sport, top to bottom. We're Jersey biased because we're both from Jersey, but the proof is in the pudding. Jersey talent matches up with any other state in the country.
Giano's going to do the same thing. I feel he just has this aura about him where players love playing for him. I thought they were way more competitive this year.
Yeah, absolutely. They were competitive. They just need to find themselves their quarterback, and that'll be fun there. But all right, Coach, that was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much.
Yep, I had a blast again. He's Dave Hyatt. He's one of my former high school track and field coaches. I was a little bastard when he coached me. So
I only coached your freshman year, really.
I had a good amount of talent, and yeah, I caused him to just leave the men's side and go coach middle school and women and go do other things.
Then I came back to the girls, but then you came back as a volunteer, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a blast. So again, Coach, thank you so much. Are you social media present that you want to give out in terms of giving any sports opinions, or are you kind of
honestly, I'm not important enough to follow. I just kind of have my I don't know.
One of our biggest fans in the Opinions Podcast Network. I'll say that he's always supporting everything we do. So I always appreciate.
I don't really post much. I'm more on Twitter as trying to figure out what's going on. But
awesome.
I love it, man. Alex, it's awesome to see you. On such a prominent role, man. Keep it up. We're all proud of you.
I appreciate that. So again, I'm Alex Cuesta, host of the Sports Opinions Podcast. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at @A_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30, Instagram at SportsOpinions30, and also the Opinions Podcast Network, which is now the umbrella of all of the podcasts underneath it, has a Twitter at The Real OPN. We just did a big giveaway where we gave away a free jersey, and we plan on doing more giveaways, giving away more cool stuff. So pay attention to the Real OPN Twitter, and you'll see what the giveaways are. Probably bi-monthly, but we're going to see what we want to do with that. So again, everybody, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. Coach, appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Everybody, have a good one.
All right, Alex. Thank you.